All right, everybody, welcome back to episode 9 of How to Make a Few $1,000. We're almost at double digits, which is super exciting. I'm your co-host, Frederick Ott, joined by my co-host, Sammy Mattingly. Sammy, what's going on?
Nothing much, man. How you doing?
Doing well, as always, and we're joined by our very special guest, Surya, co-founder of Accru. Surya, what's going on, man? Thanks for joining.
Hey, thanks, Frederick. Excited to be here. I've been listening to your podcast for the last couple of weeks, and great to be here. I've known Sammy for a bit, so yeah,
Yeah.
enjoying. Just looking forward to chatting with you guys today.
Yeah, 100% likewise. And I know you and Sammy have been doing some work together with the crew, and I haven't been in there a bunch yet, but Sammy's just totally raving about the software, and I imagine I'll be in there soon and be in there frequently, to help with our kind of monthly bookkeeping work. And I want to get into a crew a little bit later and definitely
Yeah,
talk about that and what you're doing for bookkeeping. But first, I think if you could kind of just provide us and our listeners with a little bit about your background, kind of like where you grew up, education, and kind of how you got to get into the startup scene.
sure, sure. I think very interesting background compared to a lot of the other sort of guests. I grew up in India, and then moved to the States a couple of years ago. So that's all my childhood education was there, and then I moved for work. And then the team, we have a team in India as well. Some of the engineers are in India, and we are based in San Francisco. So that's about us. And I'm a total outsider to the accounting world. I just fell in love with this maybe like a year and a half ago. My dad's an accountant, so maybe it was inevitable. But before Accrue, I was in private equity. Both my co-founder Jugal and I were actually in private equity. We were looking at growth stage and pre IPO businesses. That's actually where we learned all our finance. Both of us are computer scientists otherwise. So engineers who then went to private equity and then how now ended up in accounting. So very interesting and unique trajectory to ending up here. Now we think of ourselves as partially accountants, but everything we learn from folks like Sammy and yourself. So yeah, always grateful for that.
I would call you all accountants at this point. Well, welcome to the family.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Of course.
Yeah, it's a super interesting path. I guess could you tell us a little bit about your time at private equity? Just honestly being a new employee, being new to the corporate world, some mistakes you made, lessons learned.
Yeah. No, private equity was very interesting. I think 3 months into the job, my boss told me that hey, if you don't start taking better notes, I'll have to let you go. So I was very bad at note taking. It wasn't really my forte. So before private equity, I was at a startup, and I was the first employee there. And you guys know how startups are, right? Like first employee, second employee, you're just doing everything. You're focused on like on the day to day on getting things done. And private equity operates at a very different pace to startups. So in private equity, you're really focused on making every decision right. You're focused on being very deliberate, very diligent. So that rhythm was very different for me. So it took me about 6 months to settle in to that rhythm. It took me about 3, 4 months to learn how to make good decks, how to take good notes in meetings. So it was a big change in how I approached corporate life, because before that I had my own sort of small business, and then I was working in a startup. So private equity was a big change, but I think it also really helped me appreciate a lot of what makes a great business tick. I think in private equity, you get some investments right, you get some investments wrong, and there's a very clear pattern on the types of founders that make things happen, the types of sort of operating systems for businesses that makes things happen, and that's what I learned in private equity.
So yeah, I feel like a lot of people when they make the jump to entrepreneurship, they'll tend to stay there for a
Yeah.
while. But you're saying that you kind of got in entrepreneurship, you had a business or you were part of a startup, and then you decided to kind of go to the corporate world.
Yeah.
Um, what was kind of the impetus of that? Like, what made you want to get out of the small business startup scene and then get into, you know, the private equity? It's such a big contrast.
Yeah, yeah. I think from the time I was 10 or 12, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So that was the first thing I sort of gravitated towards, right? And I started my first small business in university. I was building some software. And then after that, I went and joined a startup. The one thing that changed things for me was the networking opportunities in private equity are just insane. Like the kinds of people that you talk to every day are you talk to billionaires, you talk to you talk to like folks who are at the head of Blackstone and head of like the best private equity funds in the world. You talk to the best entrepreneurs. I felt even after starting my own business and then working in a startup, I just didn't have the network to really do something big. Like all of us have like dreams which are insanely ambitious, but I felt at that point in life that yeah, I need to go and get that education for 2 to 3 years, surround myself with the right people, insert myself into the right network, and then go back into entrepreneurship. I even told my boss the day I entered private equity that hey, listen, I'm going to do this for 3 years and then I'm back. I'm back to starting my own business. But those 3 years I had a great time, and private equity did uh, great things for me as well. I think without that, there's no chance I would have started Accrue today. We wouldn't even have had the idea. Everything I learned about finance was there, but even more than that, knowing investors, knowing the right people, knowing how to hire, all of that came from getting that opportunity to be in private equity.
You want to you want to go, Sammy?
I can go, yeah. I yeah, it's just a captivating story. I guess so. You learn these things in private equity. You have this plan to eventually go back, and then you decide, all right, I'm gonna start a crew. I'm gonna start with Jugal. I guess what was kind of your impetus for that decision? What did you
Yeah.
see at your time in private equity to say, okay, I have this idea
Mm.
now?
Yeah. Um, I think what both of us saw there was the one thing like a private equity associate does very well is like they go very deep into the finances of any business, right? That's about the only thing we actually do well. We don't do anything,
Hmm.
but so that one thing once your boss says that hey, we are investing in this company and you go and break it down, you're part of every financial due diligence, you're part of every audit, and once it's actually in your portfolio, you start monitoring financials at like a weekly cadence or monthly cadence. So uh, both Jugal and I entered private equity without knowing anything, like I was saying, right? We didn't even
Hmm.
know anything about finance, let alone accounting. But during that time, we noticed that almost every function in a company except finance had very good software, and every sort of finance team was running on like NetSuite or QuickBooks or SAP, and every accounting team finally had to. They would send us like 15 to 20 spreadsheets and tell us, hey, this is what we have, and can you make sense out of it? So that's what we saw. We kept seeing this, and we always noticed that the best companies that were performing right in our portfolio, the best companies were so well run financially. They had such a strong CFO, they had such a strong accounting team, such good processes. They would finish their audits in like 3 weeks, and the other folks would take 3 months.
Yeah.
What- that's about what piqued our interest, and we thought, hey, there's something to do here, and then Jugal also always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So both of us started speaking to CFOs first, and then ended up realizing that accounting is the root source of everything that flows downstream, and that's how we get to it.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. My background is is as an auditor, as a public auditor. And it's funny you mentioned the accounting team just sent me these 15 spreadsheets, and it's like, this is what we have. Because as an auditor, you're expecting everything to be perfect. You've never been on that side,
Yeah.
similar to you. So you're just like, give me the stuff. Like, it's all there. I know it's all there. And now being on this side, when you're asked or your requested files, it's like, oh my goodness. Like I can maybe put this together, but there's 2 hours of my day gone. So yeah, definitely, it's just a fantastic idea. And as soon as I talked to y'all, 2, 3 months ago for the first time, I told Fred about it immediately and was very excited.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
So
for us, it started with finance, and just because we sort of came from that world in private equity, but then we quickly sort of fell in love with accounting, right? And maybe 1 year ago is when we learned debits and credits. So that's how that's how new we are to this. But yeah, that's when Jugal and I actually opened an accounting textbook and said, "Hey, let's go learn debits and credits now." And we felt that we should really be like so immersed. We even if we are not CPAs, we should be like quasi CPAs to go and build this. In fact, in my computer, I have like this small Chrome extension which comes up every day and asks me one CPA question. And I'm hoping that I just do these like 10 questions a day, something, and then someday, maybe 3 years later, I actually give the exam and see what happens.
I love
So,
it.
yeah.
that's awesome. And yeah, so I mean that's a huge challenge, right? Like not being accountants, like not knowing the debits and credits and then saying, "Hey, we're going to build this company that is for accountants." And now you're like we got to be experts. What are some of the other challenges, that you've had with Accrue just in like, the past year or so, since you founded it, in starting a business? Because I think a lot of people that we'll talk to on this show, we talk about people that want to start companies have sort of like an indecision and almost like a fear of all these challenges that are inevitably going to happen. So, what are those challenges and how have you handled them as you've built Accrue?
Yeah, sure. Um, I think before I get into the challenges, the one caveat is despite all the challenges, I think I can speak for Jugal and me when I say that this has been the best 12 to 18 months of our life. There's been like no question. There are like tons of challenges, like you're saying, but every day we walk into office and it's such a fulfilling way to live life and way to build your career. So that's the good part. The challenges are, uh, I think the first thing I would say is finding the right people around you. Like for the longest time, I wasn't even willing to start a business because I didn't have like Jugal and my other co-founder Ashfaq. So it's like you guys have each other, right? I think that is the first thing a barrier someone has to sort of cross. And I couldn't imagine doing it without my co-founder, right? It's like I can't even imagine doing it. It's why I go into work, it's why I have so much fun. So first thing, try to find someone you really respect, really admire, really love, and then try to get into business with them. Uh, the second thing is also
Yeah, all of that is great advice. I think one thing that we like to touch on in this podcast is just the idea of success. What does success look like for a crew? That is simple. Yeah, I just a shameless plug again. I we got our hands on it probably a month ago, and I'm just touching the surface with it. Like I'm using it for a handful of tasks, and it has saved me so much time already. Fred and I were talking about it before this call. So yeah, shameless plug. Go if you want a crew, contact Surya and Jugal.
That's awesome. I love that goal too because, every bookkeeper in the world to have a crew that's just we're going all in, Like we want everybody to have their hands on the software. It's simple and it's definitely a great goal to work toward. And I think if more people thought that way, then we would have a lot more people, start businesses and getting after it because that's the attitude to have for sure. Um, I want to wrap with, the show is called How to Make a Few $1,000, and I feel like so many people talk to founders that have million or billion-dollar companies already, and they've got all this revenue already, and I feel like there's an in between gap, right? Like you've got to there's a road to get to that point, and you got to start somewhere. So what would your advice be to people that are they're trying to make a few $1,000s? Right. I love it. I love it. That's great advice, and I hope everybody listening listens to that advice because I think I speak for Sammy and myself, and that we agree with everything you said there. So with that, I think we're gonna wrap it. Surya, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us on the show, and we'll have to have you back soon. 100%, 100%. All right. With that, we're gonna wrap episode 9 of How to Make a Few $1,000 from myself and Sammy. We'll see you guys on the next episode.